Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd do a little Wednesday reads, where I take you through just a handful of books that I'm working on. I'm not sure that we're going to do this every day. Your poor TBRs, your poor shopping lists are so tortured already. I'm not sure that we should do this every day, but I thought I'd take you through just 4 books. 4 seems to be the magic number for these types of videos to keep them nice and manageable. And the first one is this. It is John J. Osborne's Listen to the Marriage. Very simple cover, very simple design, and a very simple title. This is the author of The Paper Chase. He probably hates being described that way because he's getting on in years now. He wrote The Paper Chase when he was a law student, so a long time ago. But it's an amazing success to write such a thing and have it grip the literary and then the cinematic world. But this novel is a perfect example of how the real novelists, the real storytellers, don't quit. They don't get fame. They don't get their name in the record books and then stop. They keep going. They keep telling stories because they still have stories to tell. And this is a story of a troubled marriage and a marriage counselor. The couple goes to a marriage counselor and talks through their marriage during different crises over years. And the whole of the novel takes place in the marriage counselor's office. All we ever get are those sessions, which is, it sounds simple. It sounds like it might be easier to do than a normal novel, but believe me, and those of you who've tried it, it's harder. Gretchen and Steve have been married for a long time. Living in San Francisco, recently separated, with 2 children and demanding jobs, they've started going to a marriage counselor. Unfolding over the course of 10 months and taking place entirely in the marriage counselor's office, John J. Osborne's Listen to the Marriage is the story of a fractured couple in a moment of crisis, and the person who tries to get the husband and wife to see anew who they really are, who the other really is, and how their relationship has a life of its own. Heartbreaking and tender, Listen to the Marriage is a poignant exploration of a partnership, of the obstacles we put in our way, and the forces that drive us apart and that can bring us together. And I have started it already. I think it's tremendously good. I can't wait to read the rest of it. It's a small thing, so it won't take much time, but very happy that I stumbled across it when I did, because the opening chunk that I've read, I just loved it so far. 3-dimensional characters, believable dialogue, the whole gamut that is supposed to be for granted and yet is so rare these days in contemporary fiction. Then this next one is a finished copy of something that we've seen on this channel before. This is by the Prof of Goth. This is by Nick Groom, and it is The Vampire. This is the history of the vampire in lore and legend in Europe and elsewhere. The vampire can be traced to a specific time and place, 1725, on the borders of the Habsburg Empire. This was the moment when Enlightenment reason confronted Eastern European folklore, and when a series of deadly supernatural events captured the attention of doctors, scientists, and theologians all over the continent. The forensic investigations that followed were a topic of popular fascination long before poets and writers also became prey to vampiromania. The original vampire novel, John Polidori's The Vampire, was published in 1819. The author's incendiary relationship with Lord Byron helped ensure this work had a profound impact on contemporary sensibilities. But the literary craze for vampires would reach its high point with Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897, a novel whose monumental creative influence still endures in literature, TV, and film. And I have had the advance copy of this sitting here for a month at least, and I have not read it. I guess I've just been waiting for it to feel more like autumn outside, maybe, or whatever, more like October. It's boiling hot and humid today, so it doesn't feel that way. The only thing that I'm curious about, I'm curious about the whole thing. I think I've read another book by this author. I think he's quite good. I'll have to track that down when I finally do get around to this book. The only thing that bothers me is a series of deadly supernatural events that capture the imagination of the world. I'm trying to rack my brains from the outside without having cracked this book. I'm trying to rack my brains as to what that could mean. The Earth has never been host to even a single supernatural event. There is no such thing as the supernatural. So I'm not at all sure what the author could possibly mean by that. Maybe he means supranational. Maybe he means, environmental, monster storms or darkness or plague or famine or something like that. I'll have to figure that out first. And that, I have to tell you, that will be extremely disappointing. This is a very tempting volume. If at the beginning of this volume I am told that there was a supernatural event in Eastern Europe, that's going to ruin the book for me. It's going to mean that instead of following the author on his tour of the history and the mytho-history of the vampire lore, I'm going to spend the whole book hoping the author gets the psychological help that he needs. And that I hate it when books do that to me. One way or another, I'm confident that he means supra-national. I'm confident that he means unusual. Something like that. I don't know what the details are because I haven't even cracked the book. But I've read many books tracing vampire lore throughout history, and they're always fascinating. Some of them are junky, some of them are more scholarly. I've read tons of them, so can't wait to read this. Although I have waited to read it, but I'm done waiting. That's the whole point with this little Wednesday reads, is that I'm done waiting with these things. I'm going to dive right in. Same thing with this next one. It's back to fiction. It's also vampire related. It's Blood Communion by Anne Rice. This is a Prince Lestat novel. It's told in his, extremely black and white, extremely melodramatic, extremely high-pitched narrative register, and it's just another story of his. It's a thin thing, and I don't know. Lestat novels have been up and down with me. They have not always pleased me. So I'll go into this one with tempered expectations. We shall see. I will read it back to back with the Vampire and New History, and we'll see where the echoes go one way or another. And then this next one is something that I never even got the advance copy for. I now have the finished copy, and it's thin, so these aren't going to take the whole day at all. But this is The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis, the author of Moneyball. And the cover is pretty straightforward. That is the popular board game Jenga. The whole point being of Jenga being that it's a tower of wood blocks, and the point is to pull out as many as you can without causing the tower to fall over. And this was painted like an American flag, and that symbolizes the subject of this book, which is Michael Lewis's investigation into the inner workings of the departments of the United States government, like agriculture, or what are some of the others here? Department of Energy, the Commerce Department. He goes into these departments of the government in the wake of Donald Trump's election, and is horrified by what he finds, which is that the Trump administration is not staffing these departments. They're huge, thousands and thousands of positions in them are unstaffed still. And the ones that are staffed are mostly staffed by Trump apparatchiks who wanted to go in for the money. They wanted to go in to make money of their own by using these things as leverage towards deals or selling their access or whatnot. And Michael Lewis, in this book, he's not trying to make a political point. The chunk that I read prior to this video looked to me to be non-ideological at all. I don't think Michael Lewis is a fan of Donald Trump, but I think his point is non-ideological. His point is that these agencies are not bureaucratic bloat. It's not, in fact, as you know, a rank-and-file Trump supporter, maybe the stereotypical low-information Trump supporter might yell at a rally. It's not a good thing that these jobs are being left unfilled. It's actually a bad thing, a very bad thing. The Energy Department oversees the nuclear arsenal of the United States. It's currently headed by a political rival, a one-time political rival of Donald Trump, who ran for office saying he would abolish the Energy Department and had no idea what it does and has not staffed it. The Commerce Department that runs all sorts of things that people depend on. It doesn't have enough people to do the job. And the impression I got from the chunk that I read, I'll read the rest of it, it's not long at all. The impression I got from the chunk that I read is that, I'm sure this never actually happened, but the picture in my mind was of Michael Lewis with his tape recorder just wandering down empty hallways looking for someone to talk to. That's horrifying. We're not talking here about an extremely bloated, pigs at the trough bureaucracy. We're talking about gigantic industries designed to manage the gigantic concerns of a big, boisterous, complex country. There have to be a lot of people, in other words, so they don't work at all. And that is the fifth risk of this book. There are many other things that are being risked by an administration that doesn't care about running the country, an administration that cares more about enriching its own coffers, an administration that is run by people who have no experience. There are all sorts of risks involved with that, and the risk that he's talking about in this book is the risk of infrastructure collapse. And I read a chunk of it. It's his usual... he's not exactly a stylist, but his prose is very clear and very fast-moving, and this is that all over again. Not sure why this isn't getting more press. Maybe, technically, it's not out yet? Could that be right? Let's give a check and see. No, this is out already. It's just, for some reason, not getting the press that some of his other books have got. But one way or another, I read enough of it to be fascinated, so this is on the list for today. I'll blast right through it. So we have The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis. We have Blood Communion by Anne Rice. We have Listen to the Marriage by John J. Osborne. And we have The Vampire, A New History by Nick Groom, the Prof of Goth. And that is our Wednesday reads for today, but there'll be more. This is not... I'm going to read all afternoon without doing anything else, without looking at social media, without anything like that. And then take a break to write and catch up on email and maybe film another video, and then read all night long. So this is part of what I'm working on, and I wanted to show it to you just to catch you up. But I'll list all the books down below if I remember to do that. I'm constantly forgetting to do that on these hashtag day read things. But one way or another, we'll wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.